Russia arming so that it might move into the Middle East? Well, we don't need to ask that because it has already, but come back a few months. Here we are, May this year, May Gay Parade in Moscow. And look what the Daily Mail in Britain said. A show of strength. Vladimir Putin used the VE Day to stage the biggest Red Square parade since the collapse of the collapse of the communists. The biggest. A think tank has warned that Moscow is actively preparing for war. They thought then in Europe. Scripture says it's got to move also on the Middle East. And in the Middle East, that's where it's moving. So, Russia launches the largest military manoeuvre of 2015. Huge manoeuvre. Date, September. So we're only going back 3 months. The Russian military launched its largest scheduled military exercise of the year. What did it do? Well, it called up 95,000 troops and various other forces. And so that year, in March, it called up 80,000. Then, here we are, September, it called up 95,000. Since that, it's called up another 150,000 in October. What does it need all these armed soldiers for? Got to pull them out of jobs that they're doing. Their economy's not going that well. It must be very serious. And Russia moves south to help its ally, Assad. And so, September, as I said, only 3 months ago, here it is. Russian troops fighting alongside Assad's army as against the Syrian rebels. So here's Mr. Assad, the leader of Syria. Well, you wouldn't say that now because the country's so broken up. Hundreds of different groups of fighting with each other to take control of the country. And into that area comes Mr. Putin. He swings in with his weaponry. Huge plane loads are coming in with soldiers, with armaments. Planes are flying in. They wanted to fly them across Turkey or Greece. Not allowed. So they flew them significantly. And we'll look at that in a minute, across Iran, Iraq, into Syria. And so here they are, flying troops to Syria via Iran. Into that area they came. And as they did so, we can see straight away they moved into action. Look at it. Only a few days later, Russia enters Syrian war with airstrikes, jolts the Middle East into a new era. Russia is emerging strongly as the number one power of the region. That's exactly what the scripture said. That's exactly what we read. And that's really what's implied in Daniel chapter 2, as well as Daniel 11 and Ezekiel 38. Hugely significant. But look again at that quote we looked at a few minutes ago. We've got it on the PowerPoint. Daniel 11 verse 40, it says, "And the king of the north, which we've shown to be Russia, shall come against him like a whirlwind with many chariots." Now, we want to identify this territory of the king of the north. You see, when the Grecian power broke up with the death of Alexander the Great, 4 generals took over. One of those generals was the Seleucid, the Ptolemy, and over here 2 others. The one that took control of the Seleucid territory was called the king of the north. The one that took control of this, the king of the south, clearly. So let's have a closer look at that king of the north territory. There it is, the yellow territory we've got there. There were the breakup that took place, and this is the one we're looking at now, the king of the north territory. It is that territory there. So, king of the north, Syria, today, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And so what we are seeing here is the territory. I'll skip this one. Oh no, sorry. And so into this area comes Russia. And it takes over that territory, which we would see in Daniel 11 being Daniel 2 being the territory of the king of the north. There it's now got in control, somewhat Syria, allied with Iraq. And so they have moved into there. Why? Because of Mr. Assad? I don't altogether believe so. But because they'd like a foothold in the Middle East. They want the key port of Tartus that was in this area up here where the Russian ships have been. They need to be in there and they want to be there. Circumstances have been moving. Ezekiel 38 went on. The next verse from what we read earlier says, "And I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws and bring thee forth and all of thine army." In other words, circumstances would entice them into the Middle East. And it certainly was. Trouble in the Middle East. Assad, an ally of theirs, in trouble. The prospect of their port in Syria being lost and so on caused Russia to move. And it's moved in a big way. The biggest bombing raid in decades. In they moved. Brought in their huge aircraft carrier. From there they launched planes. From the airports in Tartus they are also launching planes. One of the biggest, the most complex heavy bomber missions in modern history. Listen to that. And here we are, November the 17th. Only just a few days ago. And then they moved. First of all against the rebels who opposed Assad. But under world pressure they moved against ISIS. Or ISIS, it doesn't matter which way we say it, but one or the other. But Russia has gone full beast mode over the last 48 hours. Russia has destroyed a fleet of 500 ISIS trucks used to smuggle oil out of Syria. Probably taken it into Turkey, we don't know. But here, the Russians are moving strongly. And they're not stopping there, and then more equipment's coming in. Vladimir is carrying out Russia's biggest military intervention outside of the old Soviet Union for almost 30 years. Here's one of the runways, as it was. Here it is now, upgraded. Planes on the runway, ready to go, moving into the Middle East in a dramatic fashion. But they've got allies. They've got allies in the Middle East, helping them. So, Russia enters Syrian war with airstrikes, jolts the Middle East into a new era. Russia is emerging as the strongest number one power in the region. And